Okay, so Chapter 3 of Project Horizon's Learning Curve. This chapter feels kind of like Arc 20 of Worm, where there's not a lot that actually happens, but the quality of the events that happen are pretty important, and the ramifications of some of these events we definitely see over the course of the story. So in terms of the shit that actually happens, Blackjack, P21, and their new Crusader friends are traveling through the Boneyard. And I'll just go ahead and address the kill count now. They talk about the fact that there's bodies all over the Boneyard, but I don't actively know how to count that. Blackjack isn't like counting skulls. We don't see whole bodies. It's just kind of bones everywhere. And then a bunch of ghouls pop out of the ground. And for me, I'm not counting. Killing a ghoul goes on the count. Being a ghoul does not in and of itself go on the count. So seeing a bunch of ghouls doesn't do anything. And while the fight is going, Blackjack mentions that, okay, Scootle is only firing when she gets a headshot, which makes it sound like Scootle's probably racking up kills. But it doesn't say how many she's actually killed or how many shots she fired. It sounded like more than one, but I don't know. And then as that happens, and Blackjack just starts shooting, it's unclear how many ghouls she's actually killed. She fires until her rifle is empty, but not every shot is a kill. She even says that, some of them, I got heads, sometimes no. I wasn't able to stop all the ones that I was shooting at. So while there's theoretically a lot that could have went on the count, I could only put 2 on the count specifically, because they're the only things that was actually confirmed, or at least close enough for me to confirm. One was just a ghoul that Blackjack shot, and of course, Scootle herself, which we'll get to in a little bit. But we're walking through the Boneyard. It is this place, I believe they said it's between Huffington and Manhattan. Ponies from Huffington were running to Manhattan for shelter. Ponies from Manhattan were running to Huffington for shelter. And they got caught in the bombs and became ghouls or died. As they're walking, Blackjack notices just a bunch of shit everywhere. There's weapons, there's ammo. She's like, hey, this is a great spot to start collecting stuff. Can I just go take that? And Scootle's like, nope. Bad idea. Trust me. Do not do anything like that. Yeah, but I really want to. Are you sure I shouldn't do this? And P21 going, Blackjack, I think we should listen to her. She's been out here a lot longer than we have. She understands the factions, the rules, the do's and don'ts, the ways to survive. I don't think we should do that. And Blackjack's immediate response is, okay. Being told what to do by a bunch of kids, it's a little annoying. But fair enough, they're the experts. Being told what to do by this asshole, by a stallion first and foremost, by a stallion who refuses to help? No, fuck that. If he's gonna tell me what to do, I'm gonna do the opposite. Hey, you remember the last chapter? When Blackjack is specifically saying, hey, you just seem to know what's right. And I don't know, I feel like you're someone that I need to listen to when making decisions. Do you remember that? Because clearly Blackjack fucking doesn't. And immediately is like, you know what, if he's gonna tell me what to do, he can go fuck himself. I'm gonna go do this, which leads to all the ghouls waking up and attacking them, and they get overrun. And Scootle is in fact torn asunder. Fighting a bunch of ghouls, they run into Silver Spoon's ghoul, and I don't remember what the name for that is, because there's ghouls, there's the feral ghouls, which are the full zombies, which is what they're dealing with. Silver Spoon is this super glow, and being around it, you get crazy irradiated. I know there's a term for it. I want to say super ghoul. That feels wrong, though, because she's not a super mutant. That's I think that's something else entirely. I actually don't remember what super mutants are in Fallout Equestria. Like, I assume they were something, I just don't remember it. But, they talk to Silver Spoon, and Blackjack is able to... She's like, Diamond Tiara, is that you? And Blackjack goes, sure! Yeah! Have you been, Spoon? And admittedly, it's a scene I actually kind of like. Like, it's Blackjack... As much as Blackjack says she's not smart, and one of her catchphrases, but she still hasn't said yet, is I'm not a smart pony, she can be surprisingly clever. And it's kind of like what I was saying in the last chapter. Blackjack is someone who shoots to kill, despite the fact that she doesn't want to be a killer instead of trying other methods. And her talking to Silver Spoon and trying like, hey, I'm noticing how the ghouls react around her. Can I don't know, talk to her and use her to de-escalate the situation? And it works. I'm hopeful. Again, I can't really say that because I've read the story, and it's from what I remember. Blackjack is very much a shoot-to-kill, first resort kind of character for most, if not all, of the fucking story. But I'm hoping that rereading it, I'll notice a lot more of these moments when she's not shooting to kill first, when she is trying to de-escalate the situation, or she shoots to disarm or disengage before having to resorting to kill, because I think that makes her a lot more sympathetic. But she's able to talk to Silver Spoon. Silver Spoon is able to disengage. She, P21, and the remaining 5 Crusaders walk for a bit, and then she realizes, oh, the Crusaders have been gone for a while, and I didn't notice. And I honestly don't blame them. I don't remember if it's in this scene or it's when they get to Lake Macintosh. I think it's when they get to Lake Macintosh. But I'll go and talk about it now. Is P21 chews her out for it. Like, no, you're fucking stupid. That was so dumb. Like, do you remember talking to me and saying I seem to know what's right and that's why you ask my opinion on shit? You literally, like, I literally told you what to do and then you didn't do it, like, almost to spite me. What the fuck is wrong with you? And then later, when, like, she's heavily irradiated from dealing with Silver Spoon, she needs to take Rat away. P21's like, look, I will help you with this. She's like, no, I have to do this by myself. You stay. Like, you stay, I go, no following. And does it. And she's like, cool, I did it. I fought some gators. And yeah, she does, like, throw a grenade in the gator's mouth. That's fucking cool. I like, those count as monsters. I'm not throwing the gators on the count. And again, he gets pissed at her. He's like, look, the last thing I want to deal with is a mayor from 99 telling me what the fuck I can do and can't do. I got out of that place to not deal with that shit. This is why I don't like traveling with you, Blackjack. So I don't like being around you, Blackjack. I left. I don't think you mentally ever did. And I know we've only been out here for like 2 days, but wow, you are a pain in the ass to deal with, and you're so stupid. When they do, like, sit down and talk about Scootle, Blackjack has 2 different conversations about it. There's one with P21 and one with Watcher. The one with P21 is... I think the one with Watcher actually happened first. I'll talk about that one first. Essentially, she's like, dude, I fucked up. Like, I did something really dumb, and it led to someone dying. Someone who genuinely didn't deserve it. And he's like, look, Blackjack, first of all, I have known and, like, loved people whose fuck-ups were so bad, it killed hundreds, thousands, and sometimes even millions. In the grand scheme of things, one child, not so bad. It's bad, but I've genuinely seen worse. She's like, that doesn't really make me feel any better. Well, it's kind of not supposed to. You're not supposed to just feel better. You don't just make up for this. You spend the rest of your life doing everything you can to be a better person, to help people, to make up for this horrible, terrible thing that you've done. And you pray that at the end of your life, when your good deeds are tallied against your sins, that maybe, just maybe, you did make up for the horrible thing you did. And the conversation with him feels more hopeful and encouraging. And you contrast it with the conversation with P21 where Blackjack's like, dude, I feel like shit. I feel like I should die. I feel like it's better if I die. And he goes, no, you don't get to do that. You don't get to cause a child's death and say, I feel so bad, I just want to die. Fuck you. If you want to, like, make up for this, you want this guilt, this sadness, this frustration to go away, you just need to be a better person. Don't talk about wanting to be a better person. Just do it. And it feels like, again, like, well, Watcher feels more like, it's the similar message of you gotta just do it. You have to, spend your life making up for it. Watcher feels more encouraging, while P21 feels a lot more harsh. But I like that. Like, they both feel very in tune with the theme of the story. And again, to me, the themes of the story are perseverance, not giving up, and also second chances, and earning those second chances, and what you do with them. Other things that happen in Lake Macintosh as Blackjack is, like, tripping balls from the Rat-Away, she sees some shit. The one that has stuck with me since the first time I read it is a vision of Deus cutting off her pit-buck leg with his, quote, chainsaw penis. I have never forgotten the chainsaw penis, to the point where any time I see something resembling one, I actively get excited. And I'm like, I do like the fucking point from Once Upon a Time in America. Wait, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Once Upon a Time in America is the De Niro movie. Totally different. Anyways, point. There's one in Code Geass, because Mal holds his chainsaw like a penis. It's like, it's very phallic. In one of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, I think it's in 2, there's a scene where Leatherface is, like, holding it really close to his crotch. I feel like it's something from Edge Runners, where someone actively had one or talked about having one. I might be making that up, but I feel like there was one in Edge Runners. There might have been another one. I don't remember. It's one of those things that it doesn't happen very often, but anytime I see it, I'm like, bruh, it happened again. It's like a 2 nickels moment, but now I'm at least at 3 nickels. So that's a thing that happened. It's like, I have to bring it up. I have to talk about the chainsaw penis. Blackjack also finds a memory orb here, and it is I don't actually remember what it said. I think it just said, like, Big Macintosh memory orb or something like that. Again, that is a, like, big picture moment. To be honest, let me go ahead and talk about those before I really get into the characters, because there wasn't a lot. There was maybe 2. There's more than 2, but it's really not that many. Number 1 being finding the memory orb. This is the first time we see Big Macintosh. It wasn't looked into yet, so I'm not adding into the kill count. I said that in the last video. It is his meeting with Maripony, and I remember... I'll talk about it more when we actually get to that memory orb, but I will say, the first time I read it, I was like, that's Twilight Sparkle. I had this full mental analysis, like, that is Twilight Sparkle in disguise. I am so convinced. I'm gonna go ahead and look it up right now, and I was right. That did spoil that Blackjack is the descendant of Twilight Sparkle for me, which, like, that was something I had spoiled, but, like, no, I know this. I can tell exactly where the fuck this is going, and I'll get into why, again, like, when we actually get to the memory orb. Other shit, Blackjack has her first exposure to the Ministries, while in the last chapter she got to see Applejack, so technically, in a sense, that's her first exposure, and I guess you could say the bobbleheads is like the Ministry of Image, but actively seeing the Ministry mares and some of their posters and the propaganda. Some of the other factions are mentioned. The Reapers are mentioned again, specifically their arena. We hear about homage. That's how I pronounce that word. I don't think it's right. It's like homage. I just don't like the way that sounds. I think I first heard it as homage. I prefer that. But we hear about her, we hear about the society, we hear about the collegiates, also known as eggheads. We do hear about the Steel Rangers, and we do get the Corps mentioned for the first time. The other notable thing is the Crusaders mention someone named, I think Arlost, I think is how they pronounce her name. They mention that she's now a Reaper. I'm like, oh, that's Rampage. That is one of my favorite characters in the story. I can't wait to talk about Rampage. I can't wait to get to Rampage. There's a lot to dissect when it comes to Rampage. And I like I said, I'll kind of go ahead and do the other like kill count and shit stuff, because there's not a lot here. There's a ghoul that Blackjack shoots, and there's Scootle who gets ripped in half. And that's all that I could really tell and guess and confirm. But both of them are on Blackjack, because I 100% count Scootle as one of Blackjack's kills. That's her fault. No bullshit about it. So, she's got 2 in this one. So I think that makes for me the total kill count at 56. And Blackjack's total kill count is at 22. In terms of the catchphrase count, that still hasn't changed. No, I'm not a smart pony. No anti-up. But we still at 1 security saves ponies and 1 not an execution. So with all of that, let's talk about PT1. Let's gotta talk about Blackjack first. I have a lot of notes here about Blackjack from this chapter. Quite a bit of it I actually did this morning. I sat down, I was trying to look at my notes. I was like, oh, I actually don't have my chapter 3 notes up. Let me go ahead and do that. Let me mess with anything. And then I just like went on a rant, and it felt great. It's my birthday today. And being able to talk about Project Horizons on my birthday, that's amazing. Like, this is perfect. This is wonderful. But I want to go ahead and talk about P21 first. Something I talked about in the last chapter, and talked about here as well, is the fact that he still feels like he's in 99. While he's physically free from that place, he's still mentally in captivity. And again, talking about like his virtue being freedom, it's something he's always striving toward until I feel like after Hippocratic and the incident with Scotch, I feel like that's when he finally gets there. And definitely in part 4, like, oh, okay, he's better. He got it. There's, I did talk about him chastising Blackjack. It's not just about the kill, though. He gets her about other shit, too, where Blackjack's like, I don't know what the fuck I want to do with my life. You know, I shouldn't have been in security. I'm no good. He's like, Blackjack, you're not good at anything. The problem with you is, it's not that you had a dream. It's not that you were someone who was in security, kind of inept for it, but man, you have a passion for maintenance. Man, like, as a janitor, you would have killed it. You were great as a pit buck technician or anything like that. You have no drive, no ambition, and it's frustrating to be, not only to be around someone like you, but as someone who has dreams and ambitions and had like skills, knowing it amounted to nothing because of where I was, but you get to have a good life. Like, it pisses me off. Like, I wanted to be a teacher. I learned from duct tape how to, like, the arcane sciences. I learned how to, like, use a terminal and all that kind of shit. I wanted to be able to teach, even if I still had to be a fuck pony. I would have been okay if I could have done something. And you know what the Overmare told me? She told me I can teach sex ed during my round, like during my, what did he say? Like during his queue or whatever the fuck, in his rotation. Like, don't compare us, Blackjack. That's something else I talked about in the last video. I love his relationship with Blackjack. I love how it grows and how it's very reflective of his mindset toward freedom. And I do feel like before that return to 99, he was really close to being there, and that broke him, and again, didn't quite reset him to square one, but it undid a lot of his progress. So we got that, and again, like his conversation with her about, if you say you're sorry for what you did, I don't want to hear your empty words, I want to see actions. If you're sorry, you have to make up for it. Don't say you're sorry and you feel regret, just be better. I do want to go ahead and talk about him saying that he was a teacher, or that he wanted to be a teacher, and I'll be honest, that was something I genuinely had forgotten about. But hearing that, I had a brain blast. Like, my neurons started activating, because something I have said, I believe I said it in chapter 1, I think I said it near the end of chapter 1, specifically when we talk about Deus. I know I said it in that first video. The lens that I'm viewing Project Horizons in on this reread is the lucidity lens. That Blackjack, this is all a world and story in Blackjack's head, and it's how she's processing her trauma. And that the people in her story are either people she directly knew in her actual life, or are representations of different elements, and sometimes a little bit of both. In Lucidity, they specifically mention that her party members, I don't remember if all of them were, because I don't remember one for Scotch, but I think, and I don't think Boo either, I don't even know Boo was part of the Boo. Had she met Boo at that point? Because I think she meets Boo in Hippocratic, which makes sense, because that's like the blank factory. But I don't think Boo was featured in Lucidity, but I remember P21 and Glory, and I'm like 90% sure Rampage and Locke and A were too. But anyways, is that her main party were fellow inmates that were also in the asylum, and because they were people that she knew here, she had cast them into major roles. I don't know if I agree with that, or, excuse me, at the very least, possibly, like, physically, that's who they are. Like, P21 being a blue stallion and all that shit is someone that she's met in her asylum. But his personality and his impact on her, I think, is someone she was close to in life. I think there's a very good chance he was some kind of authority figure. Maybe he was explicitly a teacher, or a therapist, or a guidance counselor, and that's why, in this early part of the story, she looks to him for guidance, and like, you just seem to know what's right, you're someone I want to listen to. And her failure to listen to him in this chapter, that just kind of gets to Blackjack's sexism, which, as I talked about in the previous video, is a flaw of hers, like a very big flaw early on in the story, that she really does work toward. It could also be a representation of, this is someone that, again, was an authority figure that was giving her advice and she really looked up to, but for some reason, it's advice she either didn't take or just couldn't take. His story... Oh, Journey, what is it, Journey? Do you need to go outside? She needs to go outside. Let me go do that. Come on, Journey. Have a good time, doggo. So, I think his backstory and the way that sex has affected him, number one, in this interpretation, Blackjack's trauma is that she was sexually assaulted by a fellow student. I don't think it was explicitly stated that Steel Rain was supposed to be her boyfriend, but it was a fellow student, possibly a friend, someone she knew and trusted. Which I had mentioned in chapter 1. I was like, I'm not sure why it's Steel Rain that does that and not like Deus, because that's Deus' whole thing. I'm like, no, I actually get it now. That's why Steel Rain is always betraying everybody. He's the chronic backstabber, because he is someone that explicitly hurt her and betrayed her trust. That's why. And possibly the fact that he's always saying to Blackjack, like, hey, thanks for not killing me. Please don't kill me. is possibly also another, like, source of the trauma. Is not that she didn't kill him, but maybe she didn't report it, or it was a really long time before she tried to, like, kill his image and report him for what he did. And maybe for quite a while he was like, hey, thanks for not reporting me, Blackjack. I'm glad we have our understanding. And it just, like, makes my skin crawl thinking about that. Like, Steel Rain is one of my favorite characters, was how much of a fucking piece of shit he is. But through this interpretation, like, oh, he's so nasty. It feels so bad. But getting back to P21, that being a major part of his backstory, again, could just be how the sexual violence that Blackjack experienced is infecting, like, her entire story and her world. It could be that this is someone who she actually developed some kind of feelings for. Maybe a relationship between the student and teacher or counselor did form. Maybe it was only a one-sided thing on her part. But given P21's aversion to Blackjack, again, like, through this lens, I could easily see it as this was, like, her teacher. This is someone that she was very close to. He was a very good, like, authority figure in her life. She developed feelings for him. He was like, I can't do this, I don't see you that way. Eventually, he let his guard down, something happened between the two of them, and believe it or not, he really got in trouble for that. And possibly, like, it genuinely ruined his life, the way that in this world, Blackjack has already ruined his life. Like, I can buy that, and I think that's why reading the story with this lens is so interesting to me. And I talk about this a bit. It's really, when I was saying, like, I went on kind of a Blackjack rant earlier, it was thinking about some of these other loose ends, or not loose ends, these connections I've just been talking about. It makes the story way more interesting for me to read. Not to say that Base Horizons isn't an interesting story, I think it is, although there's a lot of shit that frustrates me. But seeing it through this lens of, like, okay, if this is all true, what does this mean? What does this represent? There's surprisingly a lot of depth here. To the point where I am just kind of wondering, okay, like, am I just crazy for thinking this and wanting to see the story in this lens? I won't deny that. Is this a valid interpretation? It's completely accidental, but it's, aside from obviously, like, what it's directly mentioned in Lucidity, or these other connections, pure coincidence, and it's just Narratavia at work making this interpretation of the story surprisingly, like, realistic? Or there's that part of me, because the more I see these connections, like, is this actually what he was going for? Was this genuinely the interpretation, or, like, the intention behind the story? And it's just not something you're aware of until you hit Lucidity. But by the end of Lucidity, you're like, no, it's not actually what's happening. And the reason it's brought back at the end is not just the Eater trying to be desperate and it's brought up as, like, a joke. It's kind of to remind the reader at the very end, this is what's actually going on. And you might not see it, you might not believe it. Blackjack herself clearly doesn't. But this is what's actually been going on the entire time. Then you read the epilogue, you're like, I don't think that's what's supposed to be going on in the epilogue. I think the epilogue is at face value. And that's not why I don't like the epilogue, although it doesn't help. I just don't think it's very good. But we're, what, 77 chapters ahead of ourselves talking about that. But through this lens, that is what I think P21 represents. For sure, someone who was actively trying to help her through her trauma. Potentially also someone whose life she fucked up. And I'm definitely gonna get back to that when we talk about glory, and I kind of did that here when I was going on my blackjack rant. Speaking of which, I have some words about blackjack. I've got, like, let me check. Is this a whole page of just blackjack notes? No, it's not a whole page. It's almost 2 pages of blackjack notes. But admittedly, a good chunk of that is the shit I was just, is some of those connections, some of which I already mentioned, some of which are just here with blackjack. And I think a good amount of it I kind of already said. The first thing I want to go ahead and say is, looking over the first 3 chapters, I don't really know what my impression of blackjack is. Chapter 1, I think she leaves a good first impression. I think she's a very fun character. She is someone that, although again her moral compass is kind of weird given her upbringing in 99, it seems that she does at least have one, or is trying to figure it out. You also see that as much as she doesn't want to kill, she will do so in self-defense. It's like, hey, if someone's trying to hurt me or my friends, they're dead, end of story. Okay, I get that. And then you get to chapter 2, and that scene where, and again, like, anytime it's in these early chapters dealing with her sexism, I think it's a very interesting flaw, and I'm like, okay, this is, you're kind of a piece of shit for this, but given how 99 operates, I get it, and I find it really interesting, and in big picture mode, I know this is something that is addressed and that you get through. Shooting to kill on sight, first resort, first impression, and then, hey, I know I just shot your fucking face off, and I know you're dying in front of me, but I just can't pull the trigger and finish you off. I don't like that. And I get, again, I was talking about this in the last chapter, I see the dichotomy. I see the, I have to defend myself, and, like, I'm ready to do this, but also I can't just execute people. I feel like if Blackjack, I'm not saying she has to pick a road now, but I feel like if down the road, Blackjack kind of picked a lane and stuck to it, I'd like it a lot more, and I'd probably empathize with her more. If it's like, look, she just becomes a hardened killer, no question, absolute cold bitch, okay. If it's, I don't like it, but I do what I gotta do. But like with Haas, it's like, I want to remember all of the people I killed. I don't want to, but I will. Like, it's not my first resort, but when it becomes clear that I have to, I will fucking do it. And I feel like that's what Tomber tries to do with Blackjack by the end. But for me, it just doesn't always work, like, in the actual execution, no pun intended, but like in the context. Or just have her be a full-on pacifist, like, I don't kill people. I'll hurt them, I'll, like, blow off someone's leg, but look, I'm not gonna kill you. It's the fact that for me, it seemed like she never really committed. And maybe I'm completely wrong and misremembering and misinterpreting a lot of the story, which is why I want to reread it. Why it feels important for me to reread it. As I said at the start, I want to know, have I been too harsh on it? Have I been too harsh on Blackjack? And once we go on, especially I feel like Volume 3 and Volume 4, it's how is she treating a lot of these circumstances? What have you learned from Volume 1 and all the crazy shit that happens in Volume 2? Did you learn? That's what I'm really interested to know. And then we get this shit. And I talked about it, again, I know I repeat myself a lot. I do apologize for that, but while I can, to a degree, understand when I'm in the flow of combat, protecting myself, it's bang, 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 I just started blasting. When the moment is de-escalated, I can't pull the trigger. I'm like, I want to get it, and I kind of get it, but it just doesn't always fit for me. Again, you shot her in the face! to intentionally blow her face off, but now, oh, I can't kill you. That doesn't work for me. But this? What happened to Scootle? Like, I get being inexperienced, and I get being ignorant and making a mistake. This is malicious stupidity. This, like, again, even looking at the last chapter, I'm like, I have problems, I don't really get it, but I can still, in the moment, sympathize and empathize with the character. Getting Scootle killed feels out of character. I get it. Blackjack is not a smart pony, even if she hasn't explicitly said that yet. I get it. She doesn't understand a lot of this shit. She doesn't really know the consequences of what's going to happen. I get it. Blackjack has a problem with stallions and thinks they're lower on the totem pole than her, and maybe, just maybe, having one tell her what to do really pisses her off. Counterpoint. She was told at the end of the last chapter that P21 actively saved her life. That even though he's like, don't give me a weapon, I don't want to hurt anybody, I can't do that shit, he picked up a grenade and blew 2 raiders to Kingdom Come for her. My mistake. Sent them straight to the eater for her. And then is like, hey, you won't actually help. I don't want to listen to you, when he literally saved her. Okay. When she, in the last chapter, tells him, I want to listen to you and get your advice because you seem to know what's right. And he explicitly tells her, this is what I think here, and it's not just from him. He's like, maybe we should listen to the people who have come here before. And Blackjack, you seem to know what's right, so I want to listen to you, immediately says, you know what? Fuck you for trying to tell me what to do. Is this the same character from the last chapter? Because this feels really out of character. And I don't know if that's just really bad writing. Like, Somber's like, I need to make this scene happen because of how impactful Scootle's death on her is. And it is. If this is in character, and I'm just like, okay, it just makes me hate her. Because the other shit, the other flaws are interesting. And while I can have my problems with them, at least at this point in the story, they don't make her unlikable. This is horribly unlikable. And then listening to her, you're like, oh man, I made a really big mistake. I think I should die because of the horrible thing I did. It makes me angry hearing her angst about it. And it shouldn't. I should listen to this and see this character who made a mistake reflect upon her mistake. Think of how it's impacted her, and her saying, I don't want to do shit like this. And having her companion and her watcher tell her, if that's how you feel, act upon it. It's not easy to get redeemed. It's not easy to be a better person. You have to earn it every single fucking day. I think it was JJ Watt. I almost said TJ Watt, but like, no, he's the one that's actively playing. I think it was JJ Watt who was saying, like, your success, what was the phrase? It was something along the lines of, your success is borrowed. Like, you're not guaranteed that you're still gonna succeed, and it's why, like, you're basically paying interest on it every time you get up, every time you go to work, and you study, and you train. You're not just going to be good. You have to keep working for it. You have to basically keep paying back that interest, because once you can't anymore, because you either physically can't, or you emotionally can't, or you mentally can, that's when, like, the acceleration clause, all the payment is due and you're just fucked. And, like, that's when you've got to retire, and, you know, it's not in you anymore. You have to keep going. And I should love that. But when the fuck up is this monumental, this 100% your fault, And it's not because, dude, I genuinely didn't know better. No, it's because you knew better, refused to listen to people that you knew better, you trusted to know better, and had the gall to be like, oh, I feel bad. You should! This is the shit that makes me mad. This is why I hate Blackjack's angsting. Not because it's not self-reflective, not because it's not justified, but because it's this is your fault. 100% your fault. And I feel like I'm supposed to feel bad for you, but I don't. At all. Not for this. Not for, again, your malicious stupidity. Your gross negligence, to use a legal term. It frustrates the fuck out of me. I understand. Characters need to have flaws. I watched Friendship is Magic. I like Fame and Misfortune. Apparently I'm like the only one who does. But that song at the end, they're not flawless. They're a work in progress. We're not flawless. We're a work in progress. I get it. Pobody's perfect. Flaws are what can make a character interesting. It's what gives them potential for growth. We want to see them maybe not always fix their flaws, but at least in some way be able to overcome them, be able to adapt to them, shit like that. Excuse me. Blackjack's sexism is a big flaw we see early in her character, and I think it's interesting in how it affects her relationships with P21 and in how she sees the world. I can't kill this person even though she's dying right in front of me, and because I did it, because she's a woman. And woman life is sanctified. I can kill this one because he's a man, and a man's life means nothing. That's interesting, and seeing how that develops. And even that, kind of stepping back a bit, like, I know I'm going to talk about the lens here in a bit, that is 100%, I think leads credence to my interpretation that, yeah, the reason that the men are the ones who are the sex slaves and treated like shit in 99, that Blackjack sees as subhuman, is because of something a man did to her and something a woman didn't. It makes a lot of sense to me. But it's an interesting flaw, and we see, and in hindsight, I see how it develops and how it changes her. That's good shit. Her, I'll shoot you first, but I'm not an executioner. I'm like, I've seen how that plays out, and there's times where even I can admit, I'm like, it kind of works in context. There's context where it doesn't. But this malicious stupidity, this is like a Rudius level flaw. I'm on a tangent for a little bit. A couple years ago, I don't know if this is 22, 21, somewhere around there, I tried watching Mushoku Tensei. I heard it was phenomenal. I heard the visuals are great, the music is great, and the story is beautiful. It is about this real awful, degenerate piece of shit getting a second chance and making the most of it, and overcoming his trauma, overcoming his habits, and genuinely becoming a better person. I couldn't make it through 6 episodes with this piece of shit. There's a scene in, it's like episode 3 or 4, somewhere around there, with his elf friend, Sylphiette, it's something like that, I don't remember, where they were out playing, and they were hanging out, and they were gonna take a bath. And he was like, dude, he thinks she's a boy, but she's actually a girl, and I'll give him this, he didn't know that, it was not sexually motivated. But he's like, dude, why don't we just take a bath together? It'll be more efficient, it's quick, we're besties, we trust each other, it's cool. And she says, no, like, I don't want to do that, I feel very uncomfortable. Rudius, his trauma is when he was, I believe it was in high school, maybe it was middle school, I'm not sure. But when he was in school, a bunch of kids bullied him. I think they beat him up. They stripped him naked, held him up, took pictures of his naked body, sent it to like the rest of the student body, and were just making fun of him, calling him fat, calling like you got a small dick, etc., etc., to just humiliate this man. And that fucked him up for life. That is why he's like, I can't make connections with people because I think they're gonna hurt me. I can't go outside because I think anyone I meet is going to hurt me. I get that. I can understand that. And now, his friend is telling him, no, I don't feel comfortable getting naked in front of you and taking a bath. And you would think that this man, even though he's now a kid, he still has the mind of when he was an adult. It's the same dude. You would think he would say, huh, you know, I know how that feels. I know what it's like to have someone want to like see me naked, or like to like, I know what it's like to be humiliated because of that. I know what it's like to not trust somebody for doing that to you. And I'm sorry for putting you in this situation. Okay, you're right. We can do it separately. Whatever it takes to make you feel comfortable, I'm sorry. You would think he would have a shred of fucking empathy in his soul. Instead, his mental reaction is like, huh, that kind of reminds me of what happened to me. But hey, I finally got over it. It only took me like several years fucking dying and being reincarnated in another world. You'll get over it. And then takes off her clothes, finds out she's a girl, and goes, oh, I get it. Now I'm like, wow, you fucking, I don't want to say worm. I feel like that would be accidentally comparing it to something good. The level of disgust I felt in that moment was surpassed a few episodes later when he sees his sleeping cousin, who I think was 9, and says to himself, like, man, she's a real piece of shit. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna molest her. I'm like, I'm just gonna grab her boob while she's sleeping, and goes, I feel like she has great potential. She's gonna grow up and have massive bajongas. And then is like, this isn't enough. Let me take her panties off. And I said, I'm not watching this shit anymore. I don't want to see this dude's story. I don't want to see him get better. I can't imagine getting worse than this. Like, don't get me wrong, Blackjack. You're not on Rudius's level. But it is that moment of, this is a story about redemption, about seeing someone get better. Someone can be so bad and so abhorrent, again to use a legal term for intentional infliction of emotional distress, to do something that shocks the conscience, that you don't want to see them get better anymore. Yes, flaws are there to make a character interesting. Yes, flaws are there to make a character grow. Flaws can also completely ruin your perception of a character and ruin your investment. I don't think Blackjack's sexism, the way it's handled, quite does that, and in full, like, knowing how the story goes, I don't think it does. Her warped view on what is being an executioner and what isn't, I think at this point doesn't. Knowing where the story goes, like, kind of. This, though, this is the kind of shit, and again, it's not her angsting about it. Like, as a concept, for me, it's the context of, man, I feel so bad about that thing that I did that was really, really dumb. And I knew at the time it was really, really dumb. And people told me not to do it because it was really, really dumb. But I decided to be an asshole, and I did it anyways. It's the kind of thing that does make me ask, do I want to see this person get better? When her friend, okay, they're not friends yet, but when her companion and watcher are telling her, it's hard to get better and to get over this and get through this, but you can, do I want to see her do that? Yes, but it's only chapter 3, and I'm already asking myself that because this is that bad to me. But this is taking Horizons at face value. What if we don't take it at face value? Like I've been saying, and I'm using my other lens to interpret Blackjack, her story, her companions, and all that good shit. Sorry, I have to now go through a page of notes that I talked about that I didn't look at, but I don't. I think Scoodle's death, I don't think Scoodle represents a specific person that she knew. I think witnessing Scoodle's death is representative of Blackjack's loss of incident after her sexual assault at the hands of Steel Rain. I think Blackjack being at fault for what happened to Scoodle is her thinking that she is at fault for what happened to her. Maybe that's because of things that Steel Rain said to her. Maybe it's because she's like, he hasn't done that to anyone else. Like, no one else has had something like this happen. Maybe it is on me. Maybe it's something I did. Maybe it's something I said. Maybe I led him on and didn't know about it. This is my fault. And I think that's what Scoodle represents. And again, it's something that goes from, this is maliciously stupid, and I don't know if I want to see this person get better, into, this is incredibly interesting, and I feel so bad for her. Like, I don't sympathize with Blackjack getting Scoodle killed. I sympathize with Scoodle and with Boing and with all of their friends having to deal with that shit. I sympathize with B21 having someone tell him, I listen to you because you know what's right, and then having them not only ignore you, but having that ignorant, having that rejection of your advice lead to someone getting ripped asunder. But I can really sympathize with Blackjack losing her innocence and wrongly being convinced that it's her fault. And like I said, there's a lot of other elements of the story, some of which that have already happened, that I do think lead credence to this interpretation. I talked about the frequency of sexual violence that happens throughout Project Horizons, which we've already seen in Chapter 1 with multiple mares being sodomized, some off-screen, some on-screen, as just this constant reminder of the thing that happened to her. Even in the first chapter, Blackjack mentions, seeing someone being raped. I would rather die than have that happen to me. And at a face value, that's just foreshadowing of the end of 33. This is her just saying, I would literally rather have died than have suffered what happened to me, and the fact that I have to keep going and live with what happened to me. You have, I think another thing also, this is something I hadn't talked about, never really thought about before, is the isolation she feels in 99, and how she talks about, there's so many people here, but I don't know them. I can't relate to them. I can't bond with them because they only see me as security. Step back. I can't relate to anyone anymore because of what's happened to me. She feels isolated from other people. Maybe it's also not because they see her as security, but they see her as a victim. And so they always treat her as a victim. And she's not Blackjack anymore. She's not Go Fish anymore. She's a victim. And it hurts her, and it infringes on her ability to actually make connections. I just talked about Scootle. I think another thing is her relationship with her mom, and how she's like, my mom is the head of security, but she also has to be my mom. Maybe that's the thing, like, maybe her mom was a police officer, and that's why she does, like, see security, and there's this kind of dichotomy of her mom, the cop, saying, we have, like, a legal system in place and a justice system in place. I can't just go and, like, shoot the kid's dick off for what he did to my daughter. But there's also the side of her that's a mom and is like, I want to kill that motherfucker for what he did to my daughter, for what she has to live with for the rest of her life. Maybe the reason that she feels such a strained relationship is she doesn't feel like her mom helped her. Again, maybe from, like, the cop perspective of, like, you could have done more about this and you didn't. Maybe just from a mom perspective. Maybe her mom didn't believe her. Which, holy fuck, that would be heartbreaking. That's an option. I talked about Scootle being the lost innocence, and the guilt being because she thinks it's her fault. P21 being a teacher or a guidance counselor or a therapist, someone who is trying, an authority figure who is trying to help her through this. And Steel Rain being the constant betrayer is because he is the one who betrayed her. And as I was talking about this, was like, yeah, fuck, maybe that is why he's like, hey, thanks for not killing me, Blackjack's like, oh god, it's like, thanks for not reporting me. Oh, when I get to those moments now, I'm gonna go from, like, that's kind of fun to just, oh, man. I know we haven't gotten to Glory yet. I'm wondering if kind of like P21, this is someone she knows in the asylum, but she's giving them the personality of someone she knows, or like the kind of story arc of someone she knows. I'm wondering then if Glory is someone she was in a relationship with, or someone who, like, someone who tried to reach out to her, maybe as a friend, maybe romantically, and it's a relationship that Blackjack just fucked up because she wasn't emotionally ready for it yet. And despite Glory's despite this person's patience with Blackjack, she just kept fucking it up until she couldn't anymore. Until the other person said, like, no, I can't do this. I get it. I get you're going what you're going through, and it's a lot. The song Scars by Papa Roach? It's kind of like that. Like, Glory's weakness is she cares too much, but it's like, look, I can't, what is it? I can't help you fix yourself, but at least I could say I tried. I'm sorry, but I have to move on with my own life. And possibly, it maybe, just maybe, fixes the shit that happened with Glory and her death, which is shit that at face value is a fucking perfect scene that I think gets ruined. But from this perspective, it is Blackjack's desperation to fix this relationship and that person telling her no. But somehow, for some reason, giving her that chance for closure and to make things right. And it takes a moment that I'm like, you had it and then you fucked it up, into, fuck, this is beautiful. And it gets into the theme of the story of second chances and your perseverance and forgiveness, and it's really good then. Also, I think anytime it starts comparing itself to the original story, and man, Blackjack, your trauma, like, Little Pip ain't shit compared to you, makes a lot of sense if this is her own world of, her trauma is the world, she is the center of her own world, and it's essentially her own mind kind of trying to hype her up in its own way. And I think the connection, direct comparisons to Little Pip are my interpretation of that from this perspective is Little Pip is representing some, like, celebrity that Blackjack is aware of. Or if not a celebrity, like the popular girl at school kind of thing. Someone that Blackjack's like, man, I think this person is cool as hell. They're so cool. They're so likable. I wish I was like this person. This is a person who I've heard their stories. They've gone through some shit, but they've conquered it. They've stayed strong. Why can't I be like that? I want to be like that. So in her head, in her world, she is, and she keeps telling herself, you are that cool. Dude, that person's cool as fuck. But they're not as cool as you. They're not as tough as you. You are so strong, Blackjack. Like, fuck, like, this is actually like, kind of breaking my heart talking about it, man. I was saying this earlier, and it's here in my notes. I know that this sounds like a fucking stretch. That is like all this shit. It sounds like I'm reaching, and even if I'm not, even if you can maybe see, they're like, okay, that sounds kind of reasonable. This makes sense as an interpretation, but question. Why do you care so much about My Little Pony fanfiction based on a work of My Little Pony fanfiction? Why does Blackjack mean so much? It just kind of does. I think for me, at my core, I want to love Project Horizons. Because there is so much good shit here that I love. And I want to love Blackjack. Because I think there's a good character in here. There's an interesting character in here that I can really, I don't want to say get behind because it's Blackjack. That has very different connotations. But, she is someone I want to root for. I want to support. I want to be in her corner. And when I see the story through this lens, it's not only becomes a lot easier for me to like the story and like her character and be like, wait, even some of my problems kind of fall into place. It becomes like I was saying, like, dude, my heart is breaking actually putting some of this shit together. I didn't cry reading Project Horizons. This interpretation will probably break me at some point, and I don't know when. I don't know if it'll be till Glory, like Glory's death, or they're like reuniting in 76. It might be before that, like when they go back to 99. Like, oh my god, like that from this perspective is probably Blackjack getting close, like getting so close to overcoming it and being strong, and then breaking. I was talking about how, I think in the last video, P21's return to 99 fucking broke him as a character. From this perspective, it's when Blackjack completely breaks. And, okay, I think I'm probably gonna cry, because I can feel it thinking about it, is talking about her suicide attempt. Not the suicide attempt in 99, but the one right after. As, I've talked about this before, I know I talked about it when talking about Ruby. As someone who has survived a suicide attempt, it's a very, very bizarre experience. And the way you see the world in that moment is really different. And I think reading that, just in general, is gonna be hard and it's gonna hurt. With this interpretation, that is I don't even think I'm gonna cry. I think I'm gonna weep. I think it's gonna be like reading the ending of Sea Cats, or like the fucking Shirogane Save Humanity scene from Muffled Alternative. Or when I was talking about the ending of Worm when I was doing that video, where if you've seen that, I was like, dude, I'm not even trying to fight it anymore. I'm just crying. Oh, man. And something I know, I feel like I've said it on the channel. I know I've said it in real life to some of my friends. I am far more likely to analyze a story and its themes and its meanings and its messages and like what things represent beyond the surface level if I feel like it's important to me, if I'm invested, if I feel like it's inspiring me, if I'm just like, I'm glued to this shit for whatever reason. I'm far more likely to do that than if a work is very cryptically told or is very much about its literary references or its like religious references or its use of symbols. Not to say those things are bad. I love Evangelion. I didn't like the Rebuild movies, but I love the 26 episodes of Evangelion. I loved Revolutionary Girl Utena. I adored Angel's Egg when I saw it. Like, Angel's Egg is like, I know this is the exact kind of thing I don't like, and I fucking love this movie. I also have it made an hour and 6 minute video talking about Angel's Egg or Utena or Ava. And I don't really intend to, maybe, like, but I'm like, I like those things a lot, and I do like thinking about them and talking about them. But this, for whatever reason, is really fascinating to me and important to me. So I have to look deeper and figure out, like, is there a way I can love this? Like, have I been too hard on it? Have I been too soft on it? Or maybe, just maybe, I just need to change my point of view a little bit, and everything will fall into place. So with that, I am caught up on my Horizons videos. I was like, I'm not going to read Chapter 4 until I go ahead and make the next 2 videos. I've been kind of wanting to for a day or two. I was like, alright, I'll do it on my birthday. I'll have time. And like I said, I was like, talking about Horizons on my birthday, that's a birthday gift to me. This is golden. Okay, dog wants to come inside. I think that's a good time to end this. What time is it now? It's almost 5. In a couple hours, I'm going to watch Madoka, and I'm so excited to watch Madoka again. I'll see you later.